Hi, my name is Pip. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing Alexis Hall's boyfriend material. So let's cut to the chase. Did I like this book? Did I love this book? Did I hate this book? I loved this book! I read this book yesterday. I read it in one sitting. I started it at 2 p.m. and finished it at 2 a.m. and I have never read a book, especially a book this thick, in one sitting. This book is like just over 400 pages and I couldn't stop reading it. I had to know what happened. I had to follow this story. I had to know. This is amazing. So what is boyfriend material about? It's about a young gay man who lives in London called Luke O'Donnell. His parents are aging rock stars and his father is having a little bit of a comeback. And Luke is struggling to get over a breakup that happened 5 years ago where his ex-partner sold all of his deep, dark stories to the press for $50,000. And that has led to a situation where Luke now no longer trusts other people, but that his life has kind of become a PR mess. This betrayal results in Luke's public disgrace, and this has a massive impact on his life, on his employment, and on his self-esteem. So because Luke's parents are famous to some degree, he is essentially famous by proxy and famous for being the messy child of a rock star. Luke works at a charity and his PR issue becomes an employment issue when they basically tell him that he's got to clean up his act and get a nice boyfriend and improve his PR for the benefit of the charity because his negative image is having a negative impact on the charity. So in order to save his job, Luke then sets about trying to find himself a PR friendly boyfriend. Enter Oliver. There are certainly similarities in this book to other works, and I think the first and most notable one that made me go, hey, that's a bit like, was Bridget Jones references, because Oliver's parents are having a Ruby wedding celebration that he wants Luke to attend with him, and I was just like, oh, the Darcys had a Ruby wedding. Like, there was just a couple of things that made me go, that's very Bridget Jones. But mostly they were done in a way that felt like little cultural nods as opposed to sort of taking and rewriting a storyline. I felt so seen by this book right from the beginning, and obviously for very different reasons. But it was small things like how Luke feels about fancy dress parties to being someone who hasn't been in a relationship for a really long time and how that affects how you feel about yourself and kind of the narrative that goes on in your head about you and like how lovable you are and all of those sorts of things. That is something that is really strong in the book, and it's something that I really related to, and obviously for different reasons, but still it was not something I was expecting from this book, and it led to me feeling really attached to Luke, but it also led to me having some sort of perspective shifts about the narrative that goes on in my head, and it allowed me to see that narrative from a different perspective. So this book kind of did things that I was not expecting it to do. And I loved that because it felt really realistic because of the way it's written. You completely capture Luke's self-narrative, and even in the most intimate of moments, we all have those things that are going on in your mind. Like, oh, does he really like me? Is this happening? Whoa, what about how do I look in this lighting? And oh my God, he's more beautiful and he's seeing my stomach, and like all of those sorts of things. But it was done in a way that was absolutely hilarious, but also very, very real. Boyfriend material was hilarious on a regular basis, and it's generally beautifully paced. I did struggle with the last 10%, but to be fair, it was 2 a.m. and I had been reading for hours. So there's probably a fair bit of a 2 a.m. effect on the last 10%. And it's also the part where a lot of early story threads kind of suddenly come together and you have to deal with the impact of that on both Luke and Oliver. And yeah, to be honest, I think mostly it was a 2 a.m. effect, because for the rest of this book, I was completely in love with this story and these characters. Even though I lost my steam a little bit in that last 10%, I still loved this book hard. I loved the main characters, I loved the side characters, I loved the romance. I wanted these characters to be together and I wanted to see them together. Generally, I have pretty mixed feelings about love scenes in books. Generally, I could leave or take them. I'm not really fussed either way. I find they're generally fairly unrealistic and they don't always add something to the story. And they just feel like they're put in for the sake of a genre, or I don't know, for just various other reasons that don't feel necessary to the book. But the love scenes in this book felt necessary. They felt real, they felt raw, and I was here for it. This is the kind of book I feel like so many people try to write and so many people fail. This book is genuinely hilarious and it is equal parts completely ridiculous and very real, because I think if we're all honest with ourselves, when you're in the early stages of falling for someone, it is really ridiculous at times. This book actually reminded me of why I fell in love with an Australian author called Melanie Labrui. Her first book, Love Struck, had me in stitches like this one, and it was ridiculous as well, and I loved it. And I have since read everything that she's put out. Not everything has maintained that high standard, but you've certainly kept hints of that in there enough to keep reading the other books. And I was on Goodreads earlier updating how I feel about this book and a couple of others that I've read recently. And I discovered that there's a whole range of Alexis Hall books that I'm about to go down the rabbit hole on, because I really enjoyed this and it feels like if this is the way he writes, then I am in. I actually enjoyed scrolling around on Goodreads and looking at what other people thought of this book, because for the most part they were fairly similar to what I thought. And Goodreads is not a place I necessarily spend a lot of time unless I'm buying books. I always go to Goodreads to check reviews, but I tend not to do as many reviews on Goodreads as I do here on YouTube, and my logic behind it makes absolutely no sense, because as an author, I'm uncomfortable having negative things to say about another author's work. And yet I'm also conflicted by the fact that if someone read my books and they genuinely made an attempt to read them and they genuinely didn't like them, then I've got no problem with, them rating the book however they felt about it. But because I know as an author how hard it is to find readers and like how much work goes into writing a book, I do feel really bad when I give something a bad review. So you will only find a couple of bad reviews up on my Goodreads. And also, to be honest, by the time I have filmed a review like this and edited it and uploaded it, if it wasn't something I enjoyed, usually at that point I'm kind of like, I don't want to talk about this book anymore. I didn't like it. I just want to move on with my life and find something I did like. I didn't have that problem with this book. I enjoyed writing reviews for this book. I enjoyed reading this book, and I just really recommend that if you are looking for a funny romance, if you are looking for an LGBTQ plus storyline, then this book is fantastic and it's really enjoyable. If you've read this book or any of Alexis Hall's other works, definitely let me know below in the comments what you thought of it. And if you have any recommendations that are similar to this book, I would love to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and to like this video. It really helps my channel grow and I would really appreciate it. You can also check me out on Instagram and Twitter @PipCoombs, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.